everyone, and welcome to our March 31st School Building Committee meeting, community meeting. This is community meeting number 6. And I'm Jim Potter, the chairman of the School Building Committee. We have some members here with us tonight. We also have our OPM, Joel Seeley, and our architect, Ken Kovacs from Flansburgh, that will be taking us through some of the slideshow tonight. But just to kind of cover where we're at in the process, been working about 6 months, and each month we try to do one of the community meetings. So we're at the end of this month. This actually had 2 meetings. We've whittled from 7 options down to 4, working with the state, and in the last few weeks from our last community meeting, feedback elsewhere amongst committee members, that we decided to entertain a 5th option that we're going to look at. So taking on the 5th option, we're actually moving our schedule out 2 more months. So we would have been narrowing down to our one preferred design actually next week, but it will now be at the end of May that we'll be looking at that. So that's sort of where we are in the schedule. It is also going to allow us to have another 7th community meeting in May, which I think is May 5th. So there'll be one more community meeting, and that will be at Peebles on May 5th. So that'll be great for feedback. I'm glad that so many of you came out tonight to help us with feedback too. So tonight, we're going to go through a lot of these, and we're going to just touch upon the 5th option. That isn't fully developed yet, but we can mention it and talk a little bit about it. But we're still undertaking that as a committee. It's so new. So just as if you haven't seen our committee before, it's a broad-based committee that represents the entire town. There are school employees, school department, selectmen, finance committee, members of the community at large, and also town employees too. So it's a 15-member board, and we meet every 2 weeks. And then we try to have this community meeting every month. So it's a very active board. We're meeting a lot, and we're trying to work with you to come up to the best solution that we can for this feasibility study. So again, I'm going to hand it over to Kent and Joel. Joel's our bonus project manager, and I think he'll take it from here. And then at the end, we'll get into the survey that we did that the community responded to. So thanks again.
So really, why are we performing the feasibility study? There is a significant need to address the shortcomings of the Peebles School. That was presented to the town throughout 2014, and ultimately the town voted to appropriate the feasibility study money in the fall of 2014 to perform this study to develop options and plans to deal with the aged facility, the aged Peebles facility. Peebles has served the town quite well over its lifetime, but it's an aged facility, and it does have significant issues related to it. So what is this feasibility study all about? It's about uncovering as much information as possible relative to the schools, understanding what possible options there are, developing those into overall performance plans and cost estimates, and then bringing those to the town for various conversations. So our plan is really spelled out by the building committee, which is to have a maximum amount of community dialogue as we're developing of the options and getting down to the single preferred option, which Jim said we'll get to by the end of May. And those are those two main areas of development of the option fall within what we call the PDP phase, or preliminary program phase, of which we're covering a lot of information, developing options, submitting that to the MSBA, and then seeking their approval. With their approval, we'll proceed into the PSR phase, which is where we are now. And we plan for 4 forums during this phase. So we've already had 5, 3 in the first phase, 2 so far in this phase, and now we are in our third for the PSR. It's all meant to provide as much dialogue as possible with the community as the committee is trying to bring forth the best option for the town. So I mentioned the MSBA. The MSBA is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. They're the state agency that oversees all school construction in the state. We have a very regulated program that each community must follow. And if you follow their regulated program and the steps and the details that they're requiring each community to develop for any school project, they'll participate in a grant program for the school for reimbursement of that project cost. And right now, the town's reimbursement is 43.84% of eligible costs for any project that is brought forth by the voters of the community to MSBA. So it's a really great program, but we need to make sure that we follow their rigorous steps. And so, as I mentioned before, there are really 3 main areas: the preliminary design program, the PSR phase, and the schematic design phase. We are in this phase now. We've completed and submitted to the MSBA on December 18th, the PDP phase. That gets staff review. They've reviewed it and approved us to move into the PSR phase. With the PSR phase, where we are now, we're anticipating working on the 4 options that remain, and we have some information on the 5th, to whittle that down to the most preferred option by the end of May. All of that documentation will then get submitted back to the MSBA, and there it'll not only have a staff review, but it'll also be reviewed by their board of directors. Now, with the approval of their board of directors, we'll then be able to move into the last phase, the schematic design phase, which will finish at the end of September. Again, going back to the board of directors for their approval, and at that point, their approval allows the town to bring that project to you, the voters, in an anticipated vote, appropriation vote, after the MSBA board meeting on November 9th. So there's a 120-day period that the town will have to seek those appropriation votes after the November 9th board meeting. This is the overall schedule, very detailed. Can't read from where you're sitting, but just a couple of key takeaways. We submitted the PDP to MSBA on December 18th. We'll be submitting the PSR to MSBA on June 2nd. And then the MSBA board approval of the schematic design is November 9th. And then we'll have a town vote within 120 days after that. So it's a very rigorous, very defined program. And as Jim said, we're well into it. The committee's been meeting just about every 2 weeks for the last 6 months to develop the information that you'll see in here tonight. Some of the completed milestones, I think we just want to recall that the project actually started 4 years ago. It takes a long time to do a school project. That 4 years ago, the town had submitted what's called a statement of interest. That is, they define all of the issues surrounding Peebles School, whether it's the significant settlement of the building structure, or its aged facilities, single glazed windows, or its inefficient systems. All of those aspects combined into a statement of interest that the town submitted to MSBA. They then review those. They get about 120 statements of interest a year. They only approve about 10. So you can see the order of magnitude that that threshold that MSBA uses in order to decide which of the projects that have been submitted, the statements of interest, really are critical, have met those metrics that the MSB has that says your project really is in need of MSBA's participation, and we met that with Peoples met that threshold. So that was back in 2012. So 4 years ago, it took that long to get us to this point, and it's a very rigorous process. Where we are right now, we've been having community forums, 3, 4, and 5, and just last week we presented to the Finance Committee. So all of the meetings are pretty much televised, and it's the committee's goal to have as much dialogue as possible. Various completed tasks, all of the documentation that's been developed over the last 6 months is on the town's website under the School Building Committee folder. It's pretty easy to access, drop-down menu on the town's website, but all of the documents, whether they're meeting minutes, whether they're the existing conditions reports, or whether they're the full preliminary design program reports. Some of them are quite voluminous. They're about 1,000 pages, so don't just print them offhand. But all of that information, the building committee is that we want to make this as transparent as possible. All of that information is online. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ken.
So defining the need of the project, and again, it goes back 4 years ago when the statement of interest was submitted to the MSBA, and they realized there was a need that needed to be addressed at the Bournedale Elementary School. I'm going to touch upon some of the physical conditions of the school, but educationally, the gymnasium is about half the size of what it should be. There's a lack of special education spaces within the building. The library is more or less a circulation space with classrooms surrounding it. The art room is off of the cafeteria, so there's a lot of noise and distraction, as well as the music room is off of the gymnasium. So academically, there's a lot of problems, and the school's done the best they can and have been incredibly resourceful, with offices that are carved out in storage closets. And so looking at that need for academic space, bringing this school to where 21st century learning is reflected, goes hand in hand with the physical conditions of the building. This building is 62 years old. The site has poor drainage. There's water that sheets towards the entrance of the building. There's traffic issues internally with the buses and the cars. There's a lot of congestion built up during pickup and drop-off. There's handicap accessibility issues. The exterior envelope has no insulation at all. The windows here that you see here are a bulk of the skin. There's a lot of windows, and they're basically just shielding wind. There's no thermal quality at all for this building. So it's an inefficient building to keep operation. The interior is worn. It's showing its end of useful life. And the MEP systems, which really comes to the heart of this, they're all antiquated, and each and every one needs to be replaced. Some of the areas that should be addressed in the near future, there's areas of the brick veneer that has broken away in the past, and that shows areas where the ties, there's wood studs that are supporting this building, and there's ties connected to that look like they have been corroded. So the school has monitored that in the past, and they need to continue to monitor that, especially if there's a hurricane or something. We should always keep an eye on what that brick is going to do, because you don't want that brick to fall off the face of the building, especially where it's near play areas. There's the addition that was built in 1959 that is settled dramatically, and if anybody's been in that school, there's a 4-inch slope across the back of that school, and each year facilities has to come and cut the doors to compensate for the slope of that floor. And that's what you experience when you're in the space, but there's things that are hidden, such as the plumbing pipes underneath that building that are settling, and heating pipes that are coming in. And so we want to make sure when this building settles that those fittings are not going to have a bigger problem with those pipes of bust, especially the septic system that's actually leaving the addition also, connected to the greater system. So you want to watch everything that has to do with settling that addition. There's limited areas that are covered with sprinkler system. The annex addition is not, and that's okay. It's not required by code to do that, but if there were going to be if the sprinkler system was going to get addressed, at least the hedge right now should be replaced. And by code, right now, those major public spaces do not meet the requirements for ventilation. This is a space that meets code. There's air exchange into the space, so the kids are always getting fresh air. And so these three spaces right now do not meet code to address ventilation. So that's just a quick look at where the people's school is educationally and physically, and why the MSBA and why the town came, why the town went to the MSBA and said, hey, we have a problem here, and we need your help. And the MSBA recognized that, and that's why we're sitting in this room looking at a solution. So the design options, as the study scope stands, and I'll introduce a new one in a second, is option one. Option one is at the People's site. So that's a K-4 for 250 students. That basically is a new People's school. So there's a Bournedale Elementary and a People's Elementary. It's a new school for 250 students. Option two creates a district-wide pre-K through 4 here at Bournedale. So that would leave the People's School vacant for another purpose. And that would be 725 students at this school. And option 4 would be a K with an all-district 5th grade, K through 4, just like People's is currently, with the 5th grade as part of this project. And that's 410 students at the People's School site. I'm going to go through these options in a minute. And through the community forums and meeting with the MSBA, a 5th option has emerged, and that is to study a new People's options for grades 3 to 5 for 460 students. And what that means, Bournedale, every school would be a district-wide school. Bournedale would be an early or a lower elementary school, pre-K to 2. Now, there are spaces here that are sized appropriate for a lower elementary school, such as the gymnasium. The gymnasium is about half the size, and there's other spaces throughout that would be appropriate for a younger elementary grouping. The People's, and this would be the project, the new project, would be 3 to 5 at the People's site. And then that would be the Bourne Middle School, grades 6 to 8, with the 5th grade out of the middle school. And the conversation with the leadership team and the committee, here's just 5 bullet points that go to each of the options. That each school is student-focused. There's a lower elementary, upper elementary, and a middle school. And there's grade level equity. So each school, all the students are within their age-appropriate groups. They have the resources for the lower elementary under one group. They go to the upper elementary, they have the same resources, specialist teachers, and they're all student-focused. Age-appropriate enrichment programs, and a big point here is they stay with the graduating class. So through each tier, as you go to the next building, you're always with that larger group of students. And so this is an option. We don't have a plan for it yet, but that'll be released at the next school building committee. So just an overview, many of you have seen these plans before. This is option 1A. This is at the People's Elementary site. This is the existing People's School. A new school would be built in the area of the tennis courts. And while this is under construction, this school is fully occupied. There would be a safe distance for construction activity to occur here while the new school is being constructed. It minimizes the disruption to learning for the students. Here's a look at the plan. We have a community wing here with the gymnasium, cafeteria, and the music and arts and innovation space cluster, an outdoor courtyard classroom space here to bring an abundant and natural light into the building, and your classroom wing here for grades K1. And on the second level, we have 2, 3, and 4. Just a look at the plan. Here is option 2A. This is for 725 students. This is your existing Bournedale school. There would be a gym addition. So your gym right now is 3,000 square feet. It would increase to 6,000 square feet to meet the MSBA guidelines. And the new addition would be this way, expanded cafeteria and academic space. And on this option, the parking lot and roadways would be reconfigured to accommodate the increase of the size of the school for 725 students. And a quick look at the plan. This portion of the building, the existing building, remains pretty much as is. We're trying to approach this with a light touch, so we would try to limit disrupting any of the existing spaces. where we're coming in with the additions here and here. On this level in the existing building, you have K and pre-K, and you have grades 2 and 3 on the new wing. On the upper level existing, you have grades 1 and 2, grades 4 on the new addition. So now going to 4A, this is for 410 students. This is the option that integrates the 5th grade. Similar to option 1, this building is constructed while this is occupied to minimize disruption to the students. A quick look at the plan. You have a cluster of kindergarten classrooms adjacent to administration and the library, and grades 1 and 2, and a dedicated academic wing. Community functions similar to the previous option. And then on the upper level, you have grades 3 and 4, and a large cluster for grades 5. And we also looked at a renovation option of that 410 student enrollment. And the existing Peoples here is renovated with a large addition to the front of the school. We have kindergarten, 1st grade, and 2nd grade, a new library, administration, a new gymnasium. This red dashed line represents the amount of new construction. And then this area would be renovated to accommodate classrooms, and the gymnasium would be transformed into the new cafeteria with the stage similar to this space here. And then the lower levels would be renovated with a music and art and innovation cluster here. And with a project like this is disruptive to the students because this is occupied and constructed while the students are in session. And we see at least 3 major moves while the students are there, where while this is being renovated, this will be built. These students will be swung into this space, renovate that, then move the students again. So you can see how it's very disruptive. There's hazardous materials in the building that would have to be isolated, and noisy construction, disruptive to teachers and students. So again, we wanted to study this option, and we're going to show you the schedule and cost models for each one. So option 1A, what we have is 24 months. This is the option where people stays intact, and the new option is built by the tennis courts. Again, it's less disruptive to students. 19 months for the building, 5 months for the site work. 2A is the Bournedale option with 26 months. Slightly more site work because we have to prep this area first before construction can begin. And 4A is similar to option 1A with 24 months. And then 4B, that had reno at Peoples, is 30 months because of how disruptive it is with that phased occupied renovation aspect. So this extends quite a bit out than the other options. And looking at the costs, we have option 1A, gross square footage of 57,000 square feet. We have here construction cost of $28.36 million with a total cost of $36.49 million. Option 2, 725 students. The entire project, including the addition and the ad reno of the existing building, is 62,000 square feet. That is 114,000 square feet. But what's being priced out here is the new addition here and at the gymnasium and in other areas that are being slightly modified. So you can see the square footage is much less. It does not reflect going in and renovating your existing school because it remains untouched. So as you look at the final cost, it's $38.363 million, and the cost per square foot is much larger because of the square footage. You can see that the cost declines for each of the options. Option 4 is the new 4A, is 72,000 square feet for the new, approximately 41.29, and the ad reno is slightly more at 42.78 million. And for comparison, as a baseline, there's a repair-only option that takes the Peoples School and brings it up to code, and there's no educational benefit at all. The spaces are not expanded or anything. It just brings all the mechanical systems up and finishes, and that's 16.8 million. And with that, I'll hand it over to Joel to discuss project reimbursement.
I'm going to actually flip back just a couple of slides to the schedule. So what do those durations actually mean to us? So if we're thinking about going to the community and voting the appropriation either at the end of 2016 and the very beginning of 2017, under that 120-day period from November 9th. With the passage of that appropriation, Kent and his team would then be able to develop the detailed drawings to give to the contractor for bidding and construction. That process takes anywhere from 10 to 12 months, depending on what the final option is selected. So the start date of construction, let's just say, is targeted around November of 2017 to get us as a baseline of understanding what the duration is actually to us. So if there's a start of construction for, say, option 1A in November 2017, 24 months would finish that project up in November of 2019. School opening would be earlier than that at 19 months, so we'd be targeting that August 2019 school opening. And so if we really step back just a couple of slides even earlier, when we said, well, these MSBA projects, they take a while. So think about 2012, when we started the process and submitted your SOI, 2012 to 2020. That's the duration on how long typical projects take. It's a very rigorous, but it's a very deliberate process that the MSBA has all communities go through, just to make sure that you're following the right steps, that you're sharing as much information as possible, and you're getting the best solution for the town. And so when Jim remarked earlier that we pushed our schedule out 2 months in order to take the time to study this new option 5 that Kent just talked to us about, that again was a very deliberate process. The building committee wrote a letter to the MSBA on March 16th after the last community meeting requesting the approval from MSBA to add this option to the feasibility study, because it came out of the community forums. It sounded like it was a really good option and worthy of the community studying that. And then MSBA wrote back on March 24th, so it's just recently, that they would allow the community to add that 5th option. Because remember, MSBA is your partner in this feasibility study. Allow you to add that option into the study. So that's all good things. A really good collaboration between the local community and the state, because the state really has your best interests in mind as well. So, but I thought I want to kind of express what do those durations mean conceptually. You can understand the durations, but what do they mean actually in real time? So project reimbursement, MSBA again is your partner. They partner on every single school project across the state. They have very rigorous regulations that you must follow in order to receive their grant money. But then they also have constraints on how much grant money that they can give out. They get 1 cent of the sales tax annually, and that will fluctuate, as the local, state economies go. But they need to spread that 1 cent as far as they can across many communities, and so they set up these guidelines. While they said that we'll participate in 43.84% of eligible costs, we'll provide you a grant for 43.84% of your costs. The key word is eligible, and they've defined what eligible means. Eligible means, first off, following the process, following their regulations, seeking their MSBA board meetings at those appropriate levels, and getting your local appropriations done within the time frames that MSBA has stipulated. But eligible also means how much of particular aspects of the project they would participate in. And it is meant not to restrict each community from developing the most appropriate solution for their community, but they're meant to be able to have the MSBA's funding go as broad across the state as possible. And so some of those eligible costs are site costs over 8% of the building. That means anything that's, any site cost that's over 8% of the building cost is ineligible. They treat every single community the same. It's not as a penalty to any community, but it's just their way of controlling their limited funding source to be able to distribute it as far across the state as possible. Other aspects are building costs over $299 a square foot. Any asbestos flooring in the building that needs to be abated is ineligible. FF&E technology costs over $2,400 as a student. And then for legal fees, moving expenses, construction contingencies of 1%. Those are all just standard metrics that every community has to go through. For us, we have one part of their ineligible costs that is related to one of our options, that is option 2A, this school, Bournedale, where MSBA participated, MSBA's predecessor agency, the Department of Education, participated with you in the building of the Bournedale School. You opened up in 2009. You received a state grant for this building. And while they're not frowning on that being one of the design options, option 2A, they have said that they really can't participate in renovating the building because you've already received a grant from them on building this building less than 10 years ago. And so that's just how they fairly treat every community across the state. But for option 2A, there is just that added, what's called ineligible cost aspect. So what does that mean, that 43.84%? That's your base. They established that 43.84 based on your local economics, your local makeup, and such. They use a lot of factors to develop that. And frankly, they developed that with you several years ago when you first started the process. They do have some incentive points, 4 categories that you can increase that 43.84% on. The first one is maintenance. You can get an extra 0 to 2 points, depending on your historical maintenance funding that you have done for your facilities. Just to be conservative, MSP hasn't worked out those final numbers for us. They'll do that in the next phase, but we've carried a 1 for that. Reasonable expectation that you'll be in and around that range. The second is construction manager or CM at risk. It's a type of construction process in which you bring on the contractor while the drawings are being developed. So it's a partnership with the architect and the contractor going forward. MSBA agrees with that construction methodology and provide an additional reimbursement point for that. Third category is renovation, and there it's 0 to 5 points additional reimbursement based on the square footage of renovation compared to the total square footage of the project. And so it's simply a mathematical calculation. The only 2 options that qualify for that is option 2A, which is this Bournedale renovations additions, and option 4B, the 410 student renovations and additions at Peebles. And then the last category is green schools or energy efficient sustainable design schools, in which the MSBA has a minimum bar to attain LEED Silver, and with projects that attain LEED Silver, meaning that you have an energy efficient building, it's good practice, you've got good materials going in, they'll give an additional 2%. And so those are the relative reimbursements, again, for eligible costs. So how does that relate to then the construction costs or the total project costs that Kent just reviewed with us earlier? For option 1A, 36.49, option 2A, 38.63, option 4A, 41.29, and 4B, 42.78. Those are your total project costs. Using those percentage reimbursement based on eligible costs, that calculates then to MSBA grant of $12.11 million for 1A, 10.46, 2A, 14.69, and 15.47. Or another way of looking at it, the cost to the town after that grant. 1A is 24.38 million, 2A is 28, 4A 26, and 4B 27. The reason we have some asterisks up against 2A is that that final evaluation of renovation, reimbursement, what exactly is the line of renovation versus new construction for option 2A, needs further discussion with the MSBA. We've had 2 meetings with them so far on that option, and we're reasonably sure it's going to be close to this amount of grant for 2A, but just to be prudent, we thought it'd be a good idea just to keep those asterisks up there just for a little bit longer as we're kind of going through this process. So generally, the cost to town for those options are ranging in that sequence. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Jim to talk about the results of the community-wide survey.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody that did participate in the survey. I think we had over 430 responses. So won't go through every little detail about the surveys other than just hit kind of the highlights of the different questions that we had. So in the first one, it was just sort of to explain, who you were in the community as you were responding to the survey itself. In this one, it was overwhelming to the community that the Peebles didn't hold a sentimental value to the community, and that was reflected by 70% of the respondents. In the third question, we asked about what projects were important to you in the town, and the top 2 vote getters was a school or a school, police, and fire as capital projects within the town. So those were the top 2 from the survey results. I will say that there was less than 4% that thought nothing was the way to go. No capital projects. So I do want to point that out. This one was asking the community to rank what's important about the schools. And of course, education, which everyone liked to see, came in number 1 to the community. And then very close for second was the cost and location. And that location was about maintaining Peebles on one side of the bridge and Bournedale on the other. 5th grade relocation is part of a couple of the options now, and so that seems to kind of be a dead heat regards to moving it or not touching it. And what Joel did for us here was, we did have over 100 responses, so they took the top 70% and categorized it. So these are the categories that they sort of grouped in. You can see the one with the 2 schools. There was a lot of comments on that. Traffic, there's always seemed to be a lot of comments on the cost. So it fell right in line with bar graph. How our group can improve relations with the community and information-wise. We're doing a lot of this now, but these are some other options that are at our disposal. But again, we're on the town website. We try to have the cable at all of our meetings, so they're here, which is great tonight. So that we tape tonight. A lot of our meetings are live every other week. We're going to do another survey based on the 5th option, and to include that. So there will be another survey that we'd like you to participate in. And, you know, it's been in the newspaper now, there's been several flyers sent out, so just building a lot of traction as far as public being aware of the project. So, give it back to Joel.
So what are our next steps after tonight's community meeting at 6? We have a building committee meeting on the 7th, and then we actually have them every 2 weeks. And there we'll be evaluating the design of option 5. As we said, this is relatively new and really evolved from our community forum discussions. And so at the building committee, Kent and his team will come with a design of option 5 and cost estimates so they can be compared, that option then can be compared and discussed as it relates to the prior 4 options. And so the month of April will be all about continued dialogue on the options. We'll come back to the community on May 5th, as Jim had said, for community forum number 7, and that'll be over at Peebles, and we encourage you to come out. And at that time, the committee will have really come to terms with what the preferred option is in their minds, and we'd like to present that to the community at the May 5th meeting to make sure that it's appropriate and well received. That gives us a few more weeks then to refine that option going up to the submission to June 2nd. So a lot of good activity over these next 2 months. A lot of hard work by the building committee leading up to this point. And so the idea is then to build upon this and then get to the single option to be able to submit to the MSBA board for their vote to allow us to move to the next level. And then September 29th will be the submitting of the schematic design, and then November 9th is that final MSBA board meeting approving the overall project. And with that, we'd like to turn it over for questions. Yes.
Also, I come back to the size. I really have an objection to 2A, and things to think about. As a PTA member, we work to bring programs into the school, so we try to manage and juggle 725 students for lunches, for recess, for dropping off and picking up. That includes parent pickup and how you're going to navigate that with that many kids. And the principal can talk to how many kids actually get picked up and parent pickup. It's actually a lot, and that kind of traffic with 725 kids in one school. I'm worried about emergency personnel and how they respond in a school this size. If the principal has to get from one end of the building to the other end of the building, it's a long haul. Playground, we have to augment the playground as well in that budget, because you have to be able to have more kids on the playground. Again, more monitors, more case of injury possibly. It's just a nightmare to try to figure out how to have a school building with this age group with that many kids. And let's think about the traffic that comes on and off that road. Again, living here as long as we all have, this road is a nightmare. And getting to it from both bridges can be awful on any given day with one accident. Never mind 725 kids in one location here. So I really would like to see some more focus on the tear down of Peebles and a school there, and keeping this one right about where it is. Just my opinion, but
I echo that sentiment, and I'm wondering if there's any talk about the turning lane up here coming from the Sagamore Bridge into the school, turning right. at one point there was talk of that, and I think that would really be something that needs to be put on the table in any renovation.
MassDOT's going to have a conversation. It's a Cape Cod regional area study for the canal region, and that will be a part of that. So, I mean, that's out of our hands. That's to do with the Conroe. But it is ongoing.
But if we could get, some more community uproar there, some more talk, and more, people requesting it, I think it would maybe, a little traction comment.
It really, trust me, it's on.
Okay, all right. Okay. But yeah, I echo the sentiment of that age level. I personally think our two community schools, and it's not about, the geography of either side. It's about keeping smaller environments for that age group, as well as the teachers to feel that they can collaborate easily and not have to, go way across the building to collaborate. That's my feeling.
I'm just wondering if the People's option, reconstructing that People's on site, you stated that there was some issues with the present building, I guess it would be footing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's, you're confident that the footing, where the new building would be is, sound enough.
Right, yeah, with that annex, with that addition, we found the drawings, it looks like it was perfectly located over the old leaching field, and that back in the 50s it wasn't compacted as well as it should have been, but not where the addition of the Peebles was located over the old leaching field, and that we are contributing to it settling so much, but not where the main original building is. We have done test pits and borings where all the options are, and it turned out to be good bearing soil. Because we're not focusing on building back there around the addition. In the renovation addition option, that was the piece that was actually being removed. Yes.
Can I ask a question about the slide, that's the town of the cost of the town slide? That one. In 2A, does that money reflect anything about the destruction of Peoples, or what would you do with that building? Because won't that be a big added cost to the town?
Yeah, you want to go to this slide. So, the question was, within the cost for the option 2A project, is there other town costs within that? And this is to be determined, because we don't know what the outcome of Peoples could be. It could be sold. It could be torn down to do something else. It hasn't been determined, so we're keeping that as simply a to be determined aspect.
Yes.
What's the projected cost for demolition of People's, which was going to be done under 1 and 4? So we must have a projected cost of demolition. Is that, I can't seem to remember my idea. That's
For hazmat and demolition, for 1A, that's the complete amount.
Okay, so what-
1.7.
so the additional cost that's down for 2A, if we were to get rid of People's, about 1.7 million.
You could say that there's some, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
is it more possibly then?
We're trying to say that it could be something. We can't really say what it is because there's a lot of variables on what that site might be used for.
It could even be a moneymaker, you're saying, if it was sold.
The other thing that, we don't want to mix apples with oranges, and I know what you're getting at, but you can't show the demolition costs as part of this project because it's a separate project, and it would be bid separately. and it could have a different number.
But if we're gonna close the school, we already know it's in poor shape. It's gonna deteriorate fast. If we don't close the school, and we maintain occupancy permits, it's gonna be substantial maintenance costs to the town, to keep the building maintained, heated, facilities going, to maintain the occupancy permit. Because if it gets closed, it'll have to be brought to full code anyways to ever be used again by the town. So these are all major cost issues, which we haven't been at any of these numbers presented. So it is a big part of the overall picture that we have to look at as taxpayers to approve from.
Well, and I think part of this committee, which is nice, is it starts to begin other conversations. Maybe we can't explore what those are and that we should explore it as a town, but we're trying to leave, no stone unturned. So by looking at kind of vacating Peebles and just building here under 2A, it at least brings up that conversation. Like, okay, well, now what would we do with Peebles? Would we sell it? Would we demolish it? But I think we have to have, that's not something that our committee can decide.
No, but
It's
there's
more
been
of a
discussion with the town.
conversation. But
Have we had discussions with the town, building committee, and what is that? Is there any of that discussion? Cheers. Has there been discussion with the town? Has the town had any ideas? Right now, we have CBTs.
I don't know if there's any committees that are looking at it.
So none, okay, so none of the town.
We can't really look at it.
Okay.
It's like we can start the conversation, but
Who
we
maintains
can't
it?
really study it.
Does the school department maintain the building or come under their census?
Yes.
That would-
Okay. So it is a concern for the schools themselves.
Unless they do what they've done in the past, which is to turn it over to the town, which they've done with other buildings. But I can't speculate as to.
Just something we don't want to handle after we already, because it should be all part of this process. I know it's not the building committee.
Right.
We have a building committee made up of all these different committees of the town. Different boards. It's not like it's unknown.
Hi, Jim. Can you speak a little bit to your survey and the respondents to the survey? I'm just curious to know, did you capture some sort of, you alluded to capturing some demographic data from the respondents, who they were. There you go, the students' parents. I was encouraged to hear that only 4% of the respondents said that we should do nothing.
Right.
But I also, the cynical side of me, or maybe more realistic side of me, says, but out of the pool of people who are most likely to respond to this survey, I don't know that we're necessarily capturing if that 4% is you could say that's an accurate reflection of the community's feeling at large. I wouldn't go that
No,
far
I
to
wouldn't
say
say
that.
that.
I wish it were.
I think that's an ideal that you try to meet with everything, We met with the finance committee meeting last week, or this past Monday, and we had our meeting last week, and one of the comments I made was the same as town meeting. Town meeting isn't always a reflection of what the community thinks. It's who's in the room and how they vote.
Correct.
And so I understand the surveys the same way, but it was good to see over 430
No, that was
responses.
very encouraging.
That's a good number, and they may all have an interest or a vested interest. I'm not sure. This is the best teller that we have as to who they are that did respond, and of the different projects that are out there, that just happened to be the number. There's only 4% that said do nothing out of the 437 people.
Thank you.
I have a comment about, option 4 in general. Just as someone on this side of the bridge, the upstate side, I feel as if that 5th grade move for everybody seems odd. My kids will go from here, pre-K 4, and then for 1 year go over to another school, and then move on to a middle school. So it would be so you're gonna have the 5 options. Who's deciding on what the number 1 option is? Obviously, I understand that that's what these meetings are for, so you can hear our input and all of that. But what is,
The 15-person committee.
okay, all right, so there'll be a vote or discussion.
There will be, and in fact, with the 4 options, the vote would have been next week. But we've added this 5th option, so the vote will be at the end of May, if it's May 26th. So we're going to talk between now and then at every other week at our meetings, and then we have the one more community forum. And by May 26th, we'll have a good idea of going from the 5 down to 1. The 5th grade option was something that also was added a while back. I think it was December, in November, before our submission in December. We added the 5th grade because that also kind of evolved as a discussion about moving 5th grade to elementary, where it is in some other communities, and there was some discussion about when the middle school was first built, and there is some documentation that it was for 6 through 8. And then 5th grade was moved in, and they were able to free up the smaller schools like Hoxie, and so at that time, and then it just hasn't changed all these years. So we just wanted to explore that, and I know exactly what you're talking about with the 1-year transition. So we weren't trying to create a 1-year transition. It was actually a 5th grade option that was in addition here at Bourndale, and that school would have been 885 kids, and it would have been K through 5 for the whole district. And again, vacating Peebles, so there wouldn't have been that transition, but the committee felt that the school was just too big, and so that 5th grade option was eliminated. So the 5th grade option that is left is just at Peebles. Although with the 5th option that we're adding, Peebles would be 3 through 5. So that's a entirely different way to look at it too.
And neither of those were, and this is my first meeting, so neither of those options were the new Peebles and moving pre-K over to Peebles and having it be pre-K to 5 and K to 5 over here.
Pre-K, I think the pre-K program in its entirety has always been here. I don't know if it's an option.
It's not one of the options that I like.
Yeah, there wasn't, the 5th grade option, like I said, was explored at both schools.
Okay.
And here at Bournedale. But we just felt as a committee that the school was too large. So in December, it was part of the 7 options. It was narrowed down to 4, and one of those that was eliminated was the 5th grade here. So it would have been pre-K through 5 here.
Okay, just to clarify, with the original enrollment, there's no pre-K in any of the options. We just happen to have pre-K in Bournedale, but when it comes from the MSBA, it's not supported in their rate configuration. It starts at K. And so when they looked at the options over here, they looked at a K through 5 district-wide. It's 885 students at this site, which is too big. And then because the 2A, you have pre-K here already, that's why it's the option. And it wasn't part of the other options because it's not part of their
Okay, that makes sense.
their
Why
enrollment.
you couldn't say that.
They start at K, and it's on the district to add that.
I was just thinking about 5th grade. But I like the idea of them going and kind of integrating 5th grade, having their own wing, because they're all going to eventually go over there anyway for middle school and high school. So I kind of like the idea before they're teenagers of them kind of getting to know each other and then moving up as a group. I think that and I like it being in an elementary school.
I definitely like 5th grade and elementary, but
Yeah.
if you're thinking about it from a person who's going to have their kid in the same school for all those years, for our kids, I transition them to a new school for 1 year. It's a lot of change on a kid.
Right.
You know, new environment, new people, new principal, new everything for 1 year, and then they'll move on. So if I were on your side of the bridge, I probably would be thinking about it, but I'm not, so.
And that was part of the conversation at many of the community forums, because that 1-year transition could be a burden, and yes, there could be some kind of transition plan for the Bournedale students, making them a distinct academy. And it's one of the reasons why the all-district option was looked at, because there's value in the 5th grade to still continue looking at it in an elementary school setting, but also have an equal playing field for everybody. And that's where that option 5 came from, that they would be district-wide with student-specific schools throughout the year.
And I think the other part of adding to that evolution of option 5 is when we met with MSBA to talk about option 2A and the reimbursement, what they were participating in. It was really pointed out that the gym here is half the size that it would be under a building. And it really made a lot of sense to have that smaller size gym for a lower elementary. So that's part of the evolution of this types of dialogue. It's just good for the project.
And I just
wanted to comment too that you said you were new tonight. Our committee meetings are open to the public too, so please feel free to come and listen to, watch the progress of it, as well as the forums. The forums are great. They kind of summarize everything that we've been talking about in our meetings, but we're also welcome at that.
At the
We
community building.
encourage it.
The community building, 6:30, Thursday night. But just to kind of follow up on the 5th grade thing too, I think our committee's getting good at stoking fire, but then we can't, do anything about it. Josh brought it up about the Peebles. Another one is the 5th grade. It's a philosophy. So when we're exploring this option, our committee does nothing with 5th grade. In fact, we're looking to get some feedback from the school committee as to what their take on moving 5th grade is. So they're a committee that they'll be looking at it, just as they'll be looking at this new 5th option and reconfiguring the schools. So it's that philosophy, it's on their end to sort of handle, and we can take some of that feedback. And they might say, this is, a dramatic change, it's too soon, we can't do that right now. So we would take that into account. Or they might say, geez, we always wanted to move 5th grade into an elementary setting, so it's good that we start the conversation, maybe we'll look at exploring this. So that's another conversation that now we're starting in the dialogue in the town that we can't complete it at our committee, but it needs to be out there, so that way at least we looked at it, and it was something that was explored. So, thank you.
I just have a question. If the 5th grade is moved out of the middle school, so now there's an entire hallway where 5th grade used to be, what's going to happen with that space? Is the middle school, all those students more spread out, so there's smaller classes, or how will that space be used?
Well, the question was about moving 5th grade out and what would it free up in the middle school, or how would it affect class size and other spaces. I think one of the principals here.
Yeah, well, having, been at the middle school since it opened, what would happen is some of the spaces now that are being utilized, they're being utilized in ways that they were never meant to be used for. Because when the middle school was being built, when we had the committee, and right before it opened, the 5th grade, because of space constraints within the town, they moved the 5th grade over at the last minute. Because we were having issues with the other buildings in town and out on the base. So what's happened is, as time has evolved, I have to say the middle school's done a good job of having the 5th grade there, even though they're elementary level. They've done a good job with them at the middle school. And there has been some benefits to the 5th grade being there. probably most specifically, after-school activities that we don't have at elementary. But the reality is that there's spaces such as where my classroom was, the 2 health classrooms. That room was not meant to be classrooms. It was supposed to be a grade level meeting room. So now, if the 5th grade wants to have a meeting with the entire grade, they have to go in and cramp in and commandeer the media center for that time. So there's a temporary wall going across that's not supposed to be a permanent fixture for the last 15 years. So that's 2 classrooms there. In the past, the French and Spanish rooms have been there. We have special education teachers that are doubled and tripled up into the regular classrooms in the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade levels. So they would be pulled out of those classrooms and be given their own classrooms, because that's what that 5th grade wing is meant for, was for specialized instruction, special education, health classes, Spanish class, French class. So there's rooms being utilized as classrooms, like 212, the room across from the 6th grade bathrooms. That was a teacher's room. So some of the upstairs teachers' room, spaces, workspaces have been converted into classrooms over time. Now, with that being said, it's not saying that the classrooms are bursting at the seams, but they would be able to use those spaces, some for the way that they were intended for originally, and then as education has evolved, as you know, with your classroom, years ago, that had different usage. So I'm sure that they would make good use of the space. I don't know if
So I understand that some of the issues this committee is bumping up against are outside of its purview, but when the issue bumps up against educational philosophy, what's the process for you to reconcile that issue so that you can make an educated recommendation on a particular design? Like, will this committee actually conference with the school committee, or is it less formal than that?
Well, we have 2 members on our committee that are on the school committee. And, they report back to their committee to talk about what we've discussed. And so the school committee's aware of the 5th grade move. They're aware of the 5th option addition. Next week, we're actually meeting with the school committee to talk about some of these issues. So we'll get feedback then.
That was the finance committee.
And we met with finance committee on Monday night to get some feedback from them and to give them an update of the last 6 months where we are, so they understand where the project is and the process and the numbers and what we're looking at for options, so they understand.
So, I mean, just to some of the other issues that have been raised, it's not like you're making an educated guess on your recommendation. You're meeting with other committees whose purview are those different issues.
And we've made it a point that we don't operate in a vacuum. That's why we have these meetings, and we're trying to meet with other stakeholders that have important decisions to make. We can't make those decisions for them, so we're hoping it's a collaborative effort, and we can get enough feedback from them to help drive us includes the public. It's not just committees here and there. We want public feedback. We're taking the temperature of the water. And we're asking the questions. What do you think about school? What do you think about police, fire? We need to know what the sentiment is out there, what people want to see versus, I saw in the paper like a do nothing option. Well, we already had that option, but we're doing a feasibility study, so we have to come to a conclusion at the end, and then the voters decide what they want to do beyond that. But we're trying to explore everything that we need to so that everyone can make an informed decision at the end and say, yeah, everything was vetted, we've looked at that, but we think this is the best way to go.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I think so.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'd be curious in a poll of the educators, and I don't know if that's, it's union rules or something, but as to how they feel, what they feel is in the best interest of the students and the town. They're, definitely stakeholders, they may have responded to that survey, but I don't know, if publicly they could educate us as to how they feel, and they may bring up viewpoints that as, parents or senior citizens in the town, or, something like that, that we're not aware of.
Well, they're all welcome to all of our open meetings. They're welcome to these community meetings, and I'm not trying to be facetious, but it's a town project, and the committee represents stakeholders from the entire town, including members at large. And although it's a school at the end of the day, it's a town-vetted project. So everyone, seniors, students, parents, it doesn't matter what your cross-section was in the community, should have decided if this was a good project or not. And so I don't know, but maybe
Well,
Liz
one of the
knows
things I want to say
internally.
in response to that is, so when Ms. Norton and I attend the meetings, we bring that back to our faculty meetings
Okay.
and try to update the staffs as things are happening or, new options are coming forward. And we're always asking for them to give us feedback, so we bring that back to the table at the school building committee meetings, whether it's a question someone has, a point that they would like raised. That's one of the ways that we try to make sure that those voices are heard.
And as well, and it's been in the meeting minutes, there's been multiple meetings with the leadership team, that's the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, both principals of the elementary school, the middle school principal, and others. And that's represented the team of the leadership team, and I think we've had probably 8 to 10 meetings with them. Those notes have been posted as well as the process went on going back to September. So we're again going to the cross-section representatives. We've had some great meetings and great feedback with the options.
I'm a teacher at People's School, and we were early on in the process asked for a lot of feedback when it was very early, not 2012, but I'm talking the beginning of this year. We had meetings with architects, we had meetings with each other, we had a lot of talk about it. So even though we haven't been here at the community meetings as much, there's a lot of talk about it. And a lot of people hearing us too. Right.
One of the things that we've talked about, so our youngest child is a junior. So I've talked with other parents who have come up through the ranks along with us, and as much as we were proponents of taking the 5th grade out of the middle schools years ago when they were in 2nd and 3rd and 4th grade, oh my gosh, it's the middle school to be nearly, 10, I agree. Up to 6th grade usually fits into the elementary level. But in hindsight, and asking our own children, and we're talking like 20, 25 kids we talked to, your transition to middle school was seamless. Parents are more worried about it, just like they are on the first day of school. Kids normally do fine. But my thought on that is, why don't we ask some of the counselors who deal with these kids in that transition, whether they be 4th grade teachers and 4th grade counselors, or 5th grade teachers and 5th grade counselors, to see front and back of that move, how that works. Because I don't think, now, knowing that I have where our kids are and what they've survived, I don't think that 1-year transition would be as big a hurdle as we think it might be. That being said, I guess I could go either way with that, because I understand both sides of the story. I am on that side of the bridge. They've never had to go across the bridge for school, but I did move a child from one school to another for various reasons, and I had to have him assimilate into that school differently than he would have normally in a normal successive year. The other couple points I wanted to bring up about having a community school in the People's site is assemblies that we have. Principals can talk to this, teachers can talk to this. How do we have assemblies with 725 kids in a variety of grades? Illnesses, the access to middle school and high school campuses, the innovation lab that some of the kids at People's have used now, public use of the buildings. Peebles School is used for meetings and basketball practice and soccer practice. So yes, we're talking about the community because people use it for different things, which is one of the reasons why it killed me to see this gym not be a full-size gym. Because the town of Bourne needs more full-size gymnasiums for the sports that we have in the town. So we think about having a second school, it's more space for the community to use where they wouldn't necessarily have extra space if this was all one contained unit here. Parent events, I was just asking Erin, you know, they do holiday shows, they do performances and things during the school year. How do you have a performance for that many families in one building? It's just,
There's not enough parking here now for the students here when there's a full school event. They're up and down the road, and it's a safety issue.
Yeah. And that's one of the things they're looking at too,
Yeah.
you know, and it's hindsight. And it's a different group though that built this building than that's looking at any of these options, and they've definitely fine-tuned the process quite a bit. And learned from some of the mistakes where the two buildings are kind of being built so closely together. And Susan, for some of your answers, it would be the same as the middle school. The size of the middle school is a very large building, and they're able to maintain a lot of assemblies and projects and safety.
but it's a different age group.
It is a different age group, but it's the same. They make sure that the building is able to hold that capacity and those programmings. And that's why they've had so many conversations with us about the types of programs or things that we'd like to see in place, just so that all of that flows. And there are plenty of elementary schools, I think, that would be bigger than this throughout the state, that they work on those projects to make sure that it works. And
Right, but do we want that size school for Bourne?
that's a totally different question.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Rose, can I ask a question? What was the need in that wing that was over that side where the parking lot is for the classrooms? And you're not worried about the DPW building being a
Well, that was the
distraction
whole
for
addition.
classrooms?
That's the whole addition to this building.
So that is classrooms.
Yes.
Classrooms, 2 stories, classrooms.
Stories of classrooms.
And if it's not construction, is that close?
No, not
Where's
not
that
anymore
parking
than,
gonna go?
not any more than the construction of it. That was really cool. But a lot of the parking is going in the back. If you, in one of their designs, it shows it off the back area there to make sure that there's enough space.
I have a question. Taking back to the override vote for this stuff, and the voters who did vote, and looking at the survey, I see most of our survey responded from parents. So I was thinking of, would there be like a snail mail survey that would be sent to residents who are regarding our voters, who they voice their opinion? I don't think, I'm assuming that the majority of the population is going to do a survey on, but to get their feedback on these projects and ultimately,
Well, yeah, the questions about the vote and ultimately, you know, getting the funding to do it, and, you know, are the right voters being asked or responding to the survey? That's the reason we have this survey. We're hoping that we can get that cross-section of people. I understand there's a lot of people that aren't going to fill out the survey, but they might show up at a ballot. After, well, September, and the state makes its vote in November, we would have 120 days to secure the funding for the project if we wanted to go forward with it. So there would have to be a time in the fall of kind of ramping up public awareness and support and just gauging if that's there. You know, this is a feasibility study. It doesn't say that we have to approve the project, but that we need to explore the project, and if it makes sense for the community, then we should do it. And it depends on, I know it depends on what option that is, and if it can be afforded, and that's why we asked the question. I know there's some other projects out there floating that the town's looking at, so it's complex. It's more complex than this one project.
Just wondering, when the finance committee met, how were they
Can you gauge how they were feeling about this project and what their thoughts really were?
Well, it seemed pretty positive. They had a lot of feedback, that they were glad on all the feedback that we received and the comments. They thought they were good comments. They didn't discuss numbers, but they were glad to have the update of where we were at and to see the options that were on the table. And, you know, we'll stay in contact with them. We also have a member from Finance Committee on our committee, so that's sort of where we've left it with them for right now.
If I could just make a comment, I am on the finance committee also, and I'm not the member on the building committee that's recently appointed. But that was the first time I've really been exposed full bore to this plan. And we still have the survey monkey questions up here. You know, I'm just and dovetailing with that the person who was talking about engaging older people. That I don't see that there was a big response from older people, and this is what one of my concerns here is that you know, if you could find a way to reach people and engage them, and you could tell us how to do that, that would be wonderful. Because that's a tough nut to crack.
Are you saying old people don't do Survey Monkey, George?
That could be. If they have electronic media in their homes, that's a big step forward. But it's just you know, it's a conundrum. I don't know how we get around it. But I was taken. I mentioned it the other night at the meeting. Was the answers that were given, the random answers that you allowed. There's 2 sets, and some of the comments that were made were kind of telling. I think you did a good job categorizing them. I think you've distilled them as best you could, but that was it's worth just going through that just to get a feel for the people who responded, and that's the emphasis. I said the people who responded. That's the the invisible part is who's not responding and how do they feel, and that's my concern. It'll always be my concern is having them get engaged and make an intelligent decision.
Well, with this upcoming survey that we'll do again, in addition to this one, we also had printed copies that were at the library and town hall. So we're trying to recognize that not everyone has a computer and not everyone might be able to go to a website, but we'll do our best to publicize that more, that they can obviously pick up a piece of paper and fill that out. That way they can also participate.
Do you know where in the process, as we go from this point, that next survey will happen?
We'll probably be talking about it at our next meeting, and it'll happen very quickly.
And I asked because on the first survey, the second greatest consideration was to have to have school on both sides of the bridge, and so I'm wondering with the new option, for those people that wanted to see school on both sides of the bridge, would they be satisfied with having the grades all, we'd have schools on both sides, but your kids would still be traveling at some point in their educational experience over the bridge. So I'm just wondering if those people, how they feel about that 5th option.
Yeah, we'll have to, we'll find that out.
I just had a thought to address that. How do you reach the seniors? We can find out what the population is that gets the Council on Aging newsletter and put a printed copy of the survey in there and ask them to send it back. I know that they sit and they fold those newsletters. It takes up all the tables in that trophy room. It may be an option, because they read it, so it's...
That's certainly worth exploring. I mean, it's, yeah.
Susan, that's a wonderful idea. Thank you for bringing that up. I think I just want to reiterate, I see a lot of familiar faces. Hi. I started this, learning about this, about as green as you could get. I had no idea the process. I've since made it a point to educate myself and learn a lot about it, not only for this school building committee, but just the school in general, because it affects me. I have 3 kids in the school system. To address people saying, how do we reach other people? I think some of it is going to be out of our control because if people don't want to learn, they're not going to want to seek it out. So it's kind of, it's all a big circle. I know plenty of young people that have iPhones and iPads and access to all sorts of information, but they don't want to know, and they don't vote, and they don't really have a say, but then they'll be the first ones to complain when the school is falling apart. So I think the most important thing to maybe put forth to people that are listening now is to talk to people, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, talk to your children's parents, talk to everybody. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to that have no idea this is going on. And I've been a member on this board since, what, October, November? And there's still people that are like, oh, we're going to do something with Peebles? Oh, I had no idea. I thought Peebles was in good shape. And I'm looking at them saying, have you been in the building? Like, are you kidding me? But again, I think it doesn't hurt. I know, right? Exactly. I know.
It's still,
I think it's
still, still there.
It is. I love Peebles, Jamie. You're doing a wonderful job. Anyway, the most important thing, I think, is to just talk to people. Talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to people on the grocery line. I won't believe how many people I've said, hey, you know, do you have kids in Bourne? Have you heard about the school project? Oh, no, I haven't. Go find out some information. That's really important. And I'm so thrilled to see so many faces at this meeting. It's fantastic. So thank you for coming.
Mike?
Can I follow up on that, Jim? Thank you very much.
You're
Great
welcome.
comments. Well, you're absolutely right. There needs to be more communication. We need to spread the message wider, more often, have the conversation with everyone. The one thing you said that I really picked up on was you said that it affects me
Yeah.
because I have kids in the schools.
Yes. Yep. And I pay taxes.
But I want to go.
Right? I mean, that's
You're
yeah,
right.
yeah.
You're right. But it's further than that.
Right.
It affects me,
Right.
and I don't have a kid in the school.
Exactly.
It affects so many people around town
Yep.
who don't have kids in schools.
Right.
Because you know what? It affects me because I want to live in a community that actually encourages education
Exactly.
for youth
Mhm.
and for job training and for all of the aspects that
Right.
a good quality education brings.
Yep.
It affects me because I have a home in town that I want to retain property value. And as a 15-year real estate broker, I can tell you one of the most significant value-added propositions you can give to a property is a good, healthy school system, an education system. If you want to attract any of the demographic that the Cape has been losing
Yes.
for the past 10 years,
Yep.
the 25 to 40-year-olds,
Right.
you've got to have good schools in order to attract those people to come here, or they're not coming. And you know what? If you're a grandparent in town or you want to have grandkids in town, having a good school system, having a good youth and activity related to them that comes with a good educational system and a good school system, these are the kinds of things that affect all of us. So I think that's the message that I want to spread around town is that if you have kids in schools, you're directly affected right now. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the population out there, if they don't have kids in schools, that they're somehow unaffected by this. Their property values, the ability of the kids that are working in the restaurants and the stores around here, and their ability to count change and give good service and have intelligent conversation. We are all affected by this, and it's not just school-aged families. It's really everybody in our community that gets affected by this.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for great comments, questions from everyone. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. And please stay involved with the process. I always ask for that. We're meeting again next Thursday at the community building at 6:30. And then we'll meet again 2 weeks later. We have our last community forum at Peebles, May 5th at 6 o'clock. So if you want to go to that one, that'll be the last community one. But all of our meetings that we meet at the community building as a committee are open to the public. We have an agenda item for public comment or questions, so please feel free to step forward at any of those meetings and with any more feedback that you might have. So, thanks again.